Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Megan Ng. I am the marketing manager here at Common Sense Solutions, and I'll be one of your co-hosts today. We have a few familiar faces with us. We have our customer success manager, Steve Daniels. He'll be here to lead us through the webinar. And we also have one of our account relationship managers, Mark Leonard, to help assist with some questions. We'll go through the housekeeping rules first. A recording of the webinar will be sent out to you along with some resources mentioned during this webinar. The attendees will be muted and have your video turned off for the viewing experience. Questions can be entered anytime via the Q&A button at the top of your Teams chat, but we'll only respond during the Q&A session in the interest of time so we can get through all the important content that we have today. On the agenda today, Mark's going to take us through getting the most from your CCS partnership. We'll also talk about some of the challenges that we see with our CCS customers when it comes to GEMPpos. And then Steve will take us through the top support issues we see with GEMPpos and how to mitigate them, as well as best practices. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mark.
Thank you, Megan. Hello, everybody. And those I don't know, my name is Mark Lehner. I'm the account relationship manager, as Megan said. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years now. What we wanted to do today is working with my fellow account relationship manager, Jonathan Sellers, and working with Steve, wanted to talk about some of the common requests and support items we see come over from GEMPpos and how we can help you get results faster. First, we wanted to go over the resources that you have available to you as CCS customers. So the knowledge base, I know we've talked about that before. I'm sure Jonathan has talked about that before. It's going to look a little different. R&D has done a great job at revamping and generating a version 2.0 of the knowledge base. It's a lot more intuitive. They've cleaned out some of the old stuff. We'll get into that here momentarily, but basically it's a great spot to go to if you're curious about how to do certain things. How do I pull a report? How do I add a user? You also have the support team. Obviously, you can see them visually. So if you see them in your local grocery store or something like that, please feel free to interrupt them and ask them how their case is doing. I'm sure they'll love it. Something is broken. So past that, how do I do this? How do I do that stage of the knowledge base? We have slow registers. Our transactions are not working, things like that. That's when you send an email to the support team at support@csense.com. There's also an 800 number, obviously, because what that does is auto-generates a ticket that gets put into our team's queue, which means that it's going to be looked at faster. We're going to get eyes on it quicker to help identify your issue. As I mentioned, there's Jonathan and myself as your account relationship managers. You can email us too. If you would like to CC us, that is great. There's our email addresses there. There's why you should email support before emailing us, or at least CCing us. I was on PTO this past Friday, and there was a client that emailed me directly a support issue that honestly could have been taken care of in the knowledge base. Since I didn't see it, since I was on PTO on Friday, I didn't see it until Monday. And so this issue lasted for 3 days when it probably could have been taken care of in about 5 minutes. Jonathan and I are really here for talk, right? What is your location going to look like in 12 months? Are you building out a new cafeteria? Does your team need training? Do you need new product? So we talked about the knowledge base is a little bit more appealing. We went from this to this. Those questions that I was talking about, you just type into the search bar there. Just this week, I was able to type in, how do I add a user to GEMPpos, and print out step-by-step directions, and how do I change a price on a menu item? And again, print out step-by-step directions. It's super user-friendly, very easy. It also provides common troubleshooting steps for hardware, software pieces, things like that. And it's highly recommended that, you go in there, you play around with it a little bit, and, try to help, you could maybe bypass the support team altogether and find your answer for you very quickly. When to contact customer support. So basically when things are breaking, right? When you see those system errors, when you see error messages on your workstation, when you see credit card fail issues, transaction fail issues, When you're having an issue with your scale, maybe not reporting the weight of a salad item to the actual register, anything that is impacting your day-to-day operations from a software or hardware perspective, that's really when we need to get our support team on the case so they can do their investigating on the back end. Now, what we would like to see, pictures. If you can provide screenshots so that we can see what those error messages are saying, because a lot of the issues are tied to what's in that particular message showing up on your screen. How many users are having this issue? Is it one user or is it multiple users? Is it one register or is it multiple registers? Which registers are they? What steps were taken before the issue occurred? What did I do from a user perspective? But nothing is too small. No piece of information is too small to help our support team. The more information we can get, the better. And we are here for just about anything. We're your client advocates, right? If you need training opportunities, you can set that up through us. If you need additional services or you have licensing questions, that is all us. Strategic planning. We want to hear that product feedback. A lot of us have regular reoccurring check-in calls, right? Weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly. That's when we really want to hear the feedback. We can see a list of tickets or a list of cases in Salesforce and see that there's maybe nothing open. It doesn't seem like you've maybe put in a ticket or a case in about a month or so. But we also know that that doesn't tell the full story. Boots on the ground, we like to hear the user experience. Maybe you've just given up because of the register is just going to run slow, but that's not the case. We really want to dive in and make sure that that product is working the way you expected it to when you bought from us. You're our clients. You deserve the white glove service. We want to make sure that our product is working the best it can for you. I had said at the beginning, some of the challenges that we see with CCS customers, a lot of these will look familiar to everybody on the call. Adjusting prices and how to copy existing menu items, pulling the daily sales report. This happens when you tend to have changes in leadership where these auto-scheduled reports have old information on there. So in other words, you have a director that has gone on to another location or is no longer with the organization. And now we have reports that are going to an email that doesn't exist anymore. Those are things that we need to know about. Know that when you come in as a new, there is plenty of reporting available to you. And Steve's going to go over that here momentarily. Transaction fails on credit cards. We know that that's a big one. Slow performing workstations and hardware issues. We can provide, and Steve is going to go over it, the troubleshooting aspects of all of these items. It just may end up that you might need a new piece of hardware, but we want to make sure that we're exhausting all options by going through these troubleshooting items before we actually go down that road. So with that, I will go over to Steve so he can walk us through the really important stuff. Steve, all yours.
Hey, everybody. Steve Daniels here in Atlanta. I'm the customer success manager. Been with the company for about 5 years. Probably know a lot of you from talking to you over the years. Welcome. We're going to run through some of these topics. The first one we're going to touch on is adding users to GEMPpos. Very easy task. You could probably be done within a minute or two. A lot of people don't know how to do it though. So pretty easy steps. You want to log into GEMPpos Enterprise. You'll want to navigate to the employee management module. You will select your site. You can then click on the plus button to add the new employee. You will need to enter the employee information, first and last name on the general tab, assign a security role and POS login. That's going to be on the security tab. And you will add job information, cashier, manager, kitchen on the job information tab. You will then save the employee. And if it's going to require back of house access, like a manager, it's going to ask you to put in their email address, which you can also put in on the general tab. And it'll assign them a login to GEMPpos Enterprise. They will get via email from gementerprise@csense.com. And you can set up your own account password after that. If you are adding an employee that needs to access the POS out front, make sure you send an employee download. The employee download is the default in the dropdown, so usually just hit send and you'd be good on that one. Some key takeaways from that: only first and last name are required to create an employee. Assigning a job and POS login is essential for register access. And for back of house access, a valid email is required. And that's it on the adding the GEMpos info. Next up is how to change a price. You will want to navigate to menu items. Under menu item setup, you will find menu items. Change the category to something that applies. So in my example, I have electronics chargers. So if you're going to be adding a new USB phone charger, you would want to navigate to that category. You will find the item and you can go to the pricing and you will change the price on the pricing tab. After you do so, save the item and send out a menu items and pricing download. It's really easy. You just have to find the item and you can go to the pricing tab and change it there. Next, we'll go over how to copy a menu item. So you will also want to go into menu item setup where you'll find the category of the item that you want to copy. In this case, we're going to copy a 6-inch braided cable. You'll use the blue copy button at the top and it'll pop up another screen where you'll put in the name of the new item. Make sure you take off the copy of, because I've seen a lot of new items that they don't take that copy off from there. So after you put in the new name, you can hit copy. And that you can go on to the next steps, which are going to be on the assignment tab. You assign the new menu item to the correct site. So if you add a new menu item and you have 2 sites that need it, make sure you go to the assignment tab and you will check those 2 sites. You will also need to put in a price. So anytime you copy an item, keep in mind it does not copy the price. We want you to put the new price in case it doesn't match up. If that step is overlooked, you could end up with the wrong price. If you do send a download out and you don't have a price on there, it's going to put a screen up that's asking for a price. So then you would know to go back into the back of house and put the price in and send another download. Once your download goes through on the system, you can hit the refresh data button and it will reset the system and you can try out your new item. Next, we're going to go over transaction fails and workstation hardware performance issues. I'm sure some of you have seen this message. It pops up on the screen if your site controller is down. The above message should appear if your site controller is offline or unreachable on your network. You'll see this screen after you hit OK on the error message. And what it's asking for is a manager approval. This will get the manager involved so that they can contact support. The next steps would be, if you know where your site controller is located, find it, power it up, or reboot it. You can also check the hardware connections, power, and internet. Every site controller has an internet cable and a power cable. There's no monitor on these, so it makes it tough to see what it's doing. Follow the cables to ensure that they're all snugly plugged in. The next steps after you do that, it might come back up, but still contact local IT for assistance. A lot of times the site controller is locked in a closet or somewhere that's not accessible to the manager or cashier. Make sure you always contact us at support so we're aware of the problem. We can give you best practices for finding out why the site controller went down. Maybe it's not on a battery backup. There's a lot of reasons why. Just let us know and we'll try to help you with that. If your site controller is down, on the sign-in screen, it will show a status of the bottom right of what you are currently on. So the green and the gray cloud icon means you're on regular. There's no problems. You can click these as well and it'll give you an information page that you can print, and it's got system information on it. If the site controller is down, you'll see one of these 2 icons on the right. And it's just trying to indicate to you, after you've gone through the steps of putting the approval code in and clearing the error message, that you're still running on backup. Once the site controller does come back up, the workstations will reset on their own. As soon as they get a ping from that site controller, they're going to kick all that data that you've been bringing up on backup over to the site controller. And it's probably about a minute of resetting, a minute or two. And then you should be back up on the site controller with the green icons with your data that you used earlier in the day. Next, we could talk about some credit cards offline or down. This is just a common message you'll see Freedom Pay where it can't get out. There could be a bunch of different messages. Make sure you get us the message if you do see error processing code, because it helps us determine if it's something on the software setup or if it's something on the network. So for this, you're also going to check USB. In some cases, the credit card readers are IP or LAN cable connections, like an internet cable, like a big phone line. Follow the cable, make sure you have it snugly secured into the plug-in. If you can't get to where it goes, if you don't feel comfortable taking the back of the monitor off, you might want to contact IT. They could usually help you with doing that kind of stuff. If you don't know how to reboot the reader, it's something you can do every time just to see if it fixes it. It actually fixes about 50% of the problems. Most of our customers have Ingenicos. It doesn't matter what model. They all should have that yellow arrow or a pound key on there. So you'll hit those at the same time and it'll reboot the card reader. A lot of times if you do reboot the POS register, it will also reboot the reader because it's a USB connection. However, if those readers have separate power connections, you should still reboot them manually using the pound key and yellow key. Or if they are LAN connections, then you want to reboot those as well because they won't reboot when you reboot the register. If you have more than one device, check the other device, because if they're both down, then it's most likely an outage. You can contact us and we'll be able to tell usually if the internet's down or what's going on. Your local IT can also help in some of these cases for checking to see if the internet's down in the cafe or wherever it's at. So credit cards are down. Once you ruled out that it's not that individual card reader, no internet, so you'll have store and forward. That is where we store the information offline. And once the connection is restored, it will send those out and get authorizations in real time. So the internet is up, but there's still an issue, and it could be an IT firewall rule. Hospital networks have to be really secure. So there's a lot of rules that are in place that could affect things like that if they're not set up correctly. So we'll work with IT on those issues and get them squared away as soon as we can. Site controller could go down and maybe cause some credit card issues. So if you have that site controller problem and you have credit card issues, let us know and we can figure out what's going on. Another common one that we get almost every day is a POS receipt printer is offline or will not print. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your printer has power. There's usually a blue or green light on to indicate that. So if you don't see that, then I would say that there's probably a power issue. There's a power cable that goes into the back. There's a power brick in the middle of the power cable, and then it goes into the wall. So you can check the power brick to make sure that that cable's in there secure. And if it's not, secure it and then check your power again. There's a power button on the front of the printer. Power is something you can figure out on your end, but you can still call us if you can't. Sometimes you have to replace the power pack. So make sure paper is securely placed and feeds without disruption. Usually you put a new thing of paper in there, don't put it in backwards. If you hit the feed button and it comes out, then it's probably okay. If you hit the feed button and nothing happens, then it's not going to print. It's kind of like a golden rule. If it doesn't feed, it's not going to work. So if you can't get it to feed, you're going to figure out why. Contact us for help. Once you check the paper and that's not the issue, check all your wires. One should be power. The USB cable is the other one. And in most cases, the third cable would be a cash drawer. And if you have two cash drawers, there will be a splitter that comes out of C in the illustration. And that could be a problem as well. If the splitter's bad, both cash drawers probably wouldn't work. One cash drawer works, but the other one doesn't. then it's probably the cable came out of this one side of the splitter. So check those cables. And if you do have two cache drawers, you can always bypass the splitter and just test to see if maybe it's the splitter. Because if both work directly plugged in, then we know there's something wrong with that splitter. So check your cables, and that's it on printers. Next, we have some things that you can do on your system that you might not be aware of when you're troubleshooting hardware. A lot of times we might ask you to go to the desktop or just reboot the workstation. Or if you don't know how to reboot the workstation, a lot of times you'll just hold the power button in, which is not really a good idea unless you have no other options. So if you go into manager options on the POS, stop POS will stop the system, and it allows the end user to stop GEMpos from running and access the desktop. Reboot. So if you wanted to reboot the system, it's froze up or something like that, you would probably have to still manually reboot it. But if you can get into the reboot in the options, if you hit that, it'll reboot it. It's good to reboot them every once in a while. We usually try to reboot your systems once a month. Shutdown shuts down Windows completely. You don't want to do that unless you know where the power button is to turn it back on. It's moving equipment and closing for a remodel or something like that if you wanted to shut it down normally. You can refresh the system. So if you guys have kiosks, this is pretty much the only way that you can refresh the kiosk right now, is to go into the manager options and do the restart in there. A lot of times, if you do have a badge pay button and it's grayed out or it's not working and you have to run badge pay offline, try the refresh in here. The refresh is an easy way for the customer to try to fix it on their end. So those are just some key things you can do through the GEMpos manager options on the POS system. And now we'll go through some best practices for GEMpos. Most of the sites are set up for auto end of day, which runs on a distinguished node, generally node 1. We set that up in the beginning, and we usually just make it node 1. There are some exceptions. If you had node 5 in the kitchen and you wanted it to run end of day and print out the end of day stuff there, then we could change it to node 5. But in the event that this node is offline, so if node 1 is off on the weekends, you should be able to come in and you'll see on the screen a end of day was not run for the previous day. Please run end of day before processing. So it's trying to let you know if auto end of day is set up, as soon as you hit that, it's going to try to run it. And unless there was something going on, it should just run through or give you some error messages on what is happening. So when you do these, you would be able to run a manual end of day if you are a manager. A lot of times this is pretty important. We'll walk through those steps right now. You will want to close out all your open checks. Ensure all sales and transactions for the business day are finalized. Close any open checks preventing complete data in the end of day report. You can access the management function on the GEMpos terminal and navigate to management menu on the right side. The end of day icon is in there. It shouldn't ask for a code unless someone else signed in there that doesn't have access. It should just let you run it. You'll get to another screen that says run end of day at the top. Click that and it's going to run it right then. If you do have any kind of errors that pop up, record them or take a snapshot of it and send it over to us. If you don't run end of day, it will let you ring up sales for the next day on that day. If that happens, if it's real early and you just open, still let us know. We'll try to fix it and run the end of day. Once you bring in some sales, the best bet is to just run the days together because we can split them right down the middle if we have to. Once we do run the end of day at the end of the night, you can print the end of day slip once you do run it. If it runs automatic end of day, then it will print out a slip for you. But if you run it manually, I think you have to hit the print icon to print the sales summary on there. If the EOD closes out the sales data for the day, the process triggers GEMpos to capture pending GEMpay authorizations for Gem2Go orders or anything that was run offline for GEMpay if you lost any kind of connection. If there are uncaptured transactions, they will appear in the uncaptured transactions report. Always verify printer connectivity if you want to print the end of day report at the end. These are some of the icons you'll see when you do run the manual end of day. It goes through all these little steps to close out the system. And don't get stuck in yesterday, run your end of day. Next, we will go over how to check your taxes. It's pretty easy if you have an open item button because you can just ring in something for $1 and it should reflect your tax rate. Now, if you're using a decimal tax rate like 7.5, it's always going to round up. So your taxes would be 8 cents for $1 if you were 7.5. If you don't have an open item, it gets a little trickier because either you would have to find an item that's $1. You don't always have to use $1. That just makes it really easy. If you ring up any item and you go into other options, there's a change price button. Highlight your item and change the price to $1 just for the test. And then it'll do the same thing. So it'll add the tax on there. If it's not right, let us know. Or if you have questions about it, let us know. But it should be something pretty easy to test on your own if you have that dollar item. We do have some discount settings that reduce taxes. So if you don't reduce the taxes, it means you're still charging off the original amount. So your tax percentage amount would be higher than the actual dollar because you're going to discount the dollar. So that can get a little tricky, but if you have any questions about that, call in and we can check your discounts. There's also a report in the back of house that you can run, and it's called taxable sales by site. So what you want to do is take your tax rate and multiply it by the net taxable amount. It should equal the total tax on the report. So with decimals, you know, if you have a really weird decimal, 7.75, the number might be off a few pennies, but it should be pretty close. I recommend running that report if you would like to check it. And you can run it for the day, the month, and it's got a little formula on there. Some popular reports, if you miss your end of day report, it gets sent out at the time of end of day. If there's internet issues or anything, there's not a way to resend it. Sometimes we'll get the case that they didn't get their end of day reports in the middle of the night that generates from the end of day running. So you can always set up your own scheduling reports in Enterprise. Sales summary is kind of like the end of day report. Sales mix has the categories and items that you sold for the day. Your employee financial summary is a breakdown of the checkouts. It's not as detailed, but it has the financial summary for every employee that rang in sales for the day. Unbatched credit is another good one. If you set up that and you start seeing things on there, let us know. We do get some alerts for unbatched credit as well, but it's always good to keep an eye on your stuff through auto reports. If people haven't set up the auto reports yet, most of our reports offer the scheduling option. Run a report and see the schedule report button, then you know you can set that up. So schedule a report, that blue little option, it will be on the top of the report that you run, and it means it's eligible. The way you would set that up, you want to do a name. You want to give the report a custom name of your choosing. So if you're setting up multiple reports, name it what the report's named. And you could put in there, if you want to set up a weekly, a monthly, then go ahead and put your date range in. You want to put in when you want the report to be sent. That's the schedule, time of day. Days of the week. So if you aren't open on the weekends, you wouldn't check Saturday and Sunday. You can leave those off. Put your email address in and save the info once it's correct, and you'll start getting them right away. Here's one that I filled out. So it's just Steve's Employee Financial Daily. I want it to run for yesterday's data. So at 1 a.m., it's going to run for whatever I rang in the day before. If you do at 1 a.m., make sure you don't pick today because it's only going to run from midnight to 1 a.m. I just schedule it for every day of the week, and there's my email address. And if you need to make changes to this, you can look in Enterprise, and in reports at the very bottom is scheduled reports. You can go in there and make changes to ones, like if you set up the frequency wrong, that's where you can do that. When you do the edits, if you want to take Sunday and Saturday off, uncheck them and save it, and it's going to skip Saturday and Sunday's data. And so the last slide that I'm going to touch on is one more for us. So the hourly end of day reports we get keeps current status of the end of day. Whoever's behind, it's going to let us know. We start getting that report at 6 a.m. and we get it till 1 p.m. The next is the credit batch alerts. Those come in once a day at 9 a.m. and they just let us know that there might be some kind of credit problem and to follow up. And the system will try to batch credit up to 10 times before it fails or gets declined. Site checking alerts, those are alerts that we get at support to let us know if sites aren't getting downloads, site controllers are down, or there's no internet at the site. We get those every hour. And if we don't, then there's no problems. So that's a really important report. So it'll let us know if a site has a problem. We'll try to fix it before they notice. And I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Q&A time. If you haven't already, there is a Q&A button where you can enter a question for Mark or for Steve. If we don't get to your question today, you guys can also email us sales@csense.com for any questions. There is a question from Larry. Are cameras available for the kiosk?
Not currently, but we're always testing new hardware out. So it's something we might want to look into.
A couple more questions here. I like the new KB, but why the change to log into view?
Well, we didn't want to leave our stuff out there for the public. With AI now, people can go in there and just try to take your KB apart, to spy on you. We want to be more secure, so that's why.
Okay, so we have time for one more question and then we're going to wrap it up. So this question's from Kathy. What if we have changed the price on the back end, did assignment and download, but the price is not correct on the kiosk?
I would say just verify that it's saved okay. And if everything looks okay on your end, just let us know, because there could be some kind of download issue. It should work. So if you are seeing that, maybe you changed the wrong price, since some places have multiple access to different locations. But if you're sure you did it right and there's something wrong, you would have to contact us. We'd be able to figure it out for you.
That wraps up our session for today. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to Steve and Mark for participating. If you guys have any other questions, again, please feel free to email us sales@csense.com. Thanks, everyone.